How you going, guys? Mark here from Reef Connections. Just thought I would video the making of mackerel wogs. So some people may know what I'm talking about, some people may not. Here is a finished one. Basically a trolling lure for the commercial catching of mackerel. Okay, consists of a wog head, gang hooks and a few other tricks. I am surprised at how many people fish for mackerel and don't actually know how to make them or how effective they are. Trolling those against commercial hard body lures or even just gar or pilchards themselves, they're probably catching 5 to 1 against hard body lures and a little bit less against natural bait. They're very effective. For what reason, I don't know, but they've been tried, tested by the commercial fishing industry for many years. And what I'm going to show you now is the exact process to build one and the little tricks of the trade that not a lot of people get the insight to. So the starting point is what I call the bullet, okay, which you buy from tackle shops, Bransfords, anywhere like that. Order them online, make them yourself. The next part to the mackerel wog is the fur, and when you buy the fur, or when I buy it, that's how it comes. It looks like basically multi-strand rope, and it's wrapped in cellophane tape. And the colours that I have, the pink, the white and the blue, are for the conditions that we fish in normally the best. Some people have a whole rainbow of colours and they try different variations, and in different light and different water clarity different ones will work, but we're not splitting hairs. We just want to build a mackerel wog that's going to beat our mates. Alright, so the best way to get the fur out of this bunch, you'll notice one end has been cut by a hot knife and the other end is clean cut. So I just use my pointy nose pliers and I grab a section and I pull it out. Okay, and if I haven't got enough, then I'll grab another section. Can be quite messy, this stuff. There are different grades, different thicknesses. This is quite thin, which is probably the hardest one to handle. The thicker one is a little bit more durable, is easier to handle, but is not as readily available. So a bit of pink. So the exact quantity is not sort of rocket science, but an equal mix of all three colours. And history has proven to me and other people that a wog that is too big, so it has too much fur, actually puts the fish off. So the amount that you require is not an exact science, but you sort of get a feel for certain wogs will fish better, and you might look at it and try and understand why. It may be nothing to do with the wog itself, but when you run them side by side and in the same conditions with the same bait, you soon work out which ones fish better. So I just simply put the three colour combinations together, and you'll notice the hot meld ends are quite handy because they hold those ends together and stop them coming apart. I'm going to leave the hot meld ends on until I'm ready to trim them off. Normally the billets are the same length. My pink billet is a tiny bit longer than the white and the blue. Never mind. Level them up, okay, and then just split them apart and just give them a little bit of a mix up. Okay, that doesn't sort of sit very straight until you trim the other ends off, but basically you want a mix of the colours. You don't want all blobs in one spot. Then a common belief is that the hairs run the same direction as the bullet travels through the water, or that it's trolled through the water. That is true, except for when we build the wog, we actually lay the hairs in reverse, and when they're in the water they actually reverse back, and the pressure of the water holds them back. The reason that's done is to give the wog head itself a little bit more size when it's trolled through the water, and it creates a different effect and it sticks out more. Okay, so you notice these are quite luminescent. It might be hard to see, but when I look at the end grain, it's almost like looking at fibre optics. So I guess with the 1,000 ends picking up light from different sources, they reflect quite well and they catch the mackerel's eye. So all I do is pick about the rough centre and I bury the bullet in to the middle, and I bury it in so that the tail of the bullet probably descends about 20 millimetres past the ends of the fur. Have a look on the top here and just balance it out a little bit. Make sure you haven't got any predominant clumps of one colour, and just balance the fur out. You get another chance at balancing it out. It's just easier if you do it here and then again before you do the final twitching. Okay, so on the bullet head itself, you'll notice that it has this chamfered tail down to a step, and this is where we twitch 2 rounds of wire to hold the fur to the bullet head, right down in this groove. If you twitch the wire up here, okay, you'll make the common mistake that after a bit of use and catching a few fish, the wire will work its way down and become loose, and then you lose all your fur. Okay, not very effective for catching mackerel. So we want to twitch as far down into that V as we can. This is the product I use for my mulesing wire and for making the wogs. It's a stainless wire. It's quite soft. It's not like single strand trace wire that is very, very hard to deal with. Okay, this is actually quite forgiving. You can twitch it with your fingers, etc., etc. Okay, so I just make this into a rough U shape, okay, around my thumb, bury this back in like I had it. Okay, this is probably the trickiest part of building the wog, and sometimes for people with big fingers it can be a little bit cumbersome, but the benefits of fishing with one of these versus a commercially available product are second to none, not only cost wise but effectiveness. Okay, so I've gone around once, gone around twice. You'll notice when I twitch that wire it does misalign some of the hairs, so I just trim that up and fix it, and again look at the end grain and make sure that they're balanced, they're not in one big bunch. Okay, so I've slid that down as far as I can into that groove in the bullet, and I simply make a loose twitch with my fingers, and that gives me enough time to grab the pliers and twitch this up. So I grab it, give it a small pull, and then proceed to twitch. I don't go too far so that I snap the wire, because then you've got to start again, but before I finish the twitch I just double check that everything is pushed down tight into that groove so that I know they're not going to come loose. Grab it now, do the final twitch. That one feels just right. So if you can see there, wire's twitched off. Trim those ends, leaving a tail about 8 millimetres long. Okay. Now bend that tail down so that it's flush with the 2 wire wraps. Easy said than done. So this is the final chance you have to balance out any of the fur. It can be a little bit hard now that you've twisted it so tight, but once we apply the glue they'll be stuck there. Okay, so I've left the ends long, leave them long until we've applied the glue, and we've left the melted ends on the end here to stop this becoming a mess while we're making it. So I've got some glue here. It's just super glue, commercial grade super glue, Loctite brand, and I just dab that around the wire see it. You don't need too much, but definitely apply it where the wire is so that the fur sticks to the wire and also soaks through and sticks to the bullet. That way, if your wire does become loose for whatever reason, or the fish bites the fur, it's not going to just tear it out as easily as it would. Okay? Now, because you haven't pressed two pieces together, that glue takes a little bit longer to dry than it normally would. So give it a little bit longer. Now I've got a rubbish bag here, and this is what I'm going to trim the ends into. So commercial grade scissors, because that's a polyester fur, it can be quite hard to trim. So these are trawler scissors. A lot of the trawler boys use them for mending nets and cutting net and that sort of stuff, and they're pretty handy. So wherever the super glue has soaked past the end of the strands, it can be a little bit challenging to cut, but it's better to have them completely impregnated with glue than to have loose ones. A well-built wog will last you many fish, and shouldn't require any attention apart from the initial build for quite some time. They're very hardy. You can see how hard these fibres are to cut. If that was just a silicone sort of squid skirt type setup, after 2 or 3 fish, that skirt will be looking a little bit worse for wear, to a point where you'll probably hesitate trolling it. So if you get even 20 baits out of one of these without doing anything, it's well worth the effort and the cost saving. Righto. So if you have a look at the end there now, trimmed up, glue's on, so it's quite hard. Okay, I haven't let the glue soak up here and glue the fibres to the tip of the bullet, and when I lay it all out, that's what it looks like. Fairly balanced, mixed colours, not too much fur, but strong and not going to let you down. Alright, that's the first step. I will now show you rigging up the gang hooks and tying your trace and the other important bits.